Hello and welcome to my workshop. So today I'm going to show a couple different weathering techniques that I picked up using a sample piece I put together that has two pieces on each side and a scribe line down the middle. So let's get started. So the sample piece I put together is just a flat sheet of styrene with two angles glued on each end. And what I've done is I've scribed a line going down both sides. What I intend to do is to cover it with primers of different colors, and I'll also be putting the hairspray layer on this, and then end up top coating it with tan and a green camouflage. What I'll do is, one side will be the tan, one side will be the green, everything below will be all the same. I will then divide it up this way so that the tan and green, one half will get weathered and the other half will stay the same. And that'll give you a good contrast to see beginning to end what the process will look like and what you start off with and the finished product. So the first thing I'll get to do is get this thing painted up, so let's get to that. Okay, so I got all the colors placed onto this little test panel. As mentioned before, I started out with a gray primer, and on top of that I put this Tresemme Ultra Fine Mist hairspray. Drying it between each coat. I put a dark rust color on, then some more hairspray, a kind of a more orangey rust color on, more hairspray, and then finally the top coat you see where I've just painted one side more of like a tan camo and the one side a light green camo. Once this dries, I'll start weathering this, and what you'll end up with is the top part will look just like this and the bottom part will be weathered. So you'll have a good delineation between unweathered and weathered, and for two different colors. So let's get to that. Okay, so I use different tools, brushes, picks, and such to break through that top layer, and then used a bristle brush with some water to agitate underneath where the hairspray layer would be. And what that does, it causes it to lift up like you see here and chip off. And so I just did a couple little spots to give an idea of what it would be like. What I'm able to do now is you stop the chipping effect by putting a coat of matte clear on top of this. So now I can come back with other colors and it won't affect what's underneath. What is done right there, that's all that should go. So the next thing I'm going to do is to accent the panel lines I've carved in, as well as go around the edges on these two little angle pieces. And what I'm going to use is a panel line accent color. So what you want to do is you just want to get just a little bit on, and you touch it into the groove. And what it'll do is it'll start to run down that panel. And you just kind of let gravity do that, and you just kind of touch it in there lightly. The thinner panels seem to seems to work a little bit better on that. It kind of wicks down, but it will run down. You can see it's kind of going there, and just come in and add a little bit right here, and then it'll just kind of evens out. It doesn't take a whole lot. You just want to kind of touch it lightly into the, obviously the better your hand is, the steadier it is, the better it's going to turn out. And I'm actually looks pretty good. So, just going to darken it up. So you can also just go into like the corner, what's a 90-degree corner, and just place a little bit in there in the corner, let it run down. If you get any too much on, like I said, you can just wipe that off pretty easily. So it just adds a little bit of a like a shadow effect to it. So that's the Panaline accent color. It's really super simple to use, and I mean you don't really have to have like a super weathered vehicle to use this stuff on. You can use it on a bright and shiny new vehicle, and it'll just make the doors and all the panel lines really pop out. So probably a good thing to get. So the next thing we're going to look at is making mud. So what I have here is Wilder's Old Grease, and it's a powder. It's really messy stuff to work with. As you can see, it's just a powder. So what you do is you'll put a little bit of powder in. Just take a little bit and just kind of drop it in. And you're going for that's actually probably pretty good right there. It's just a consistency of, mud. Like I said, this stuff absolutely gets everywhere. So just get the powder mixed in really well with the thinner. And then we'll pretend this is a underneath of the vehicle or something, and you can just literally just take and just pack this mud in. And just kind of scrape it off and get it in clumps and lumps just like it normally would look. The lighter stuff will look like it's been dried there for a while, and the darker stuff looks like it's kind of fresh. So if you put a clear, like a gloss clear over some of it and a matte clear over the other, then it will make it look like it's there's some of it's fresh and some of it's been on the vehicle for a long time. So the next process gets a little bit messy. You just take a bristle brush. I'm going to load it up with a little bit you have left. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the weathering oils in these different colors, and you'll see them here. There's a light blue, light green, tan. I have a dark rusty red and a brown, and I've just placed them randomized dots all over the place. Different sizes, different locations, and it doesn't really matter. You can favor one color versus the other based off how it, you would think it would affect. The green's going to have less effect on the actual green, probably more on the tan, so you may a little bit more of that. Just kind of keep an mind on what color you're going after. So these are oils. They're not as bad as some other oils, and they do dry fairly quickly. So give them about 20 minutes or so to dry. The other thing you want to do is when you're getting the oils out of the container, you have to get the liquid out first. So you just take and press the tip of it and just lightly squeeze into a napkin, And when you start to see paint come out, then you'll put that into a different spot. And you'll see that even if you get some of that out, you'll still see that it bleeds out around the edges. And then, so that's the liquid that keeps it soft in the tube. So you're just going to take a little bit of the thinner. I try to use the same brand thinner as the paints, but in all reality, it probably doesn't really matter. So you get a little bit of thinner on your brush, and you want to get most of it off. And what you're going to be doing is kind of just doing a sweeping motion. You're not trying to wipe it away. You're trying to kind of smear it out. So it's your brush needs to be mostly dry. So you just want to keep working at this, and you'll see that all the colors are starting to blend together, and you'll know when you're done. So I think the idea is that this is not, most dirt isn't really a one color. It's a blend of all kinds of colors. So when you put all these together, you get a more realistic look because it's more blended. So you can just kind of take and drag this down. And if you keep going with this, eventually it will take it all off. You just kind of have an idea what you're looking for and where you want to stop. The more thinner you're going to use, obviously the more it's going to take off, and the more subtle it'll be. So I think this is looking pretty good, but a little bit much on this side, so I just kind of drag that down a little bit and blend this all together. So you're not going for a look where it's like streaked paint. You want it really to kind of blend together, but you're blending it together where it's not all completely becomes one new color. It just still has some of its unique characters, but it's not so much that you can tell that, yes, that's green, or yes, that was red, but just a hint of it. Okay, so that's one way to do weathering. Showed kind of a couple different techniques. It's really hard to get a good feel for this. It's just a flat panel, but I tried to add, adding in some panel lines and some different details there. I really trying to go for a subtle effect, and I think if you're just looking at this, without looking at the top, it's really kind of hard to tell just how darkened that is with the dirt look of being weathered. But you could definitely tell a drastic difference between top and bottom when you're looking here. I'm not sure how well it'll come across on the camera, but in person you can really see that it's just a myriad of different colors coming across the top of here, which obviously comes in from using all the different color oils and blending them together on the piece. And so it gives it that depth. Whereas you wouldn't get that if you just use just a brown, or maybe just a brown and a black, like a wash. So very, very interesting technique. I think it's very useful. You can kind of see how the mud is dried up a little bit and looks pretty good. So it's got some good chips, got some splattering, lots of different effects and things. This is just a very small look into weathering. I am extremely new at this, and definitely still learning, but there's just tons and tons of effects. And the best thing to do is just get in there and try. So pretty happy with how this has turned out. I think it's a good example. So looking forward to getting into my next build project and not just doing little sample pieces like this. But until then, we'll see you in the rocks.